Islam Makhachev is putting on some weight. He said that his goal, he wants to be walking around at 192 pounds. He wants to get out to fight week, get on location in this place, Madison Square Garden, New York City, at 182 pounds, and then he will pull that extra 10 pounds, exactly 12 pounds, on fight week. But he said that's way different. He said he used to pull close to 20 pounds on fight week, and he said practices are harder because he's going with bigger guys. Now, that's interesting to me. I appreciated this when Volkanovski did it. Volkanovski even did this as piece of social media and had the nutritionalist, and they were feeding him food, and he was having to scarf it down, and it was hard to do. Very few people can relate to this because very few people have ever tried to gain weight. I get it as human beings. We look at the scale and go, I've gained weight. That was fun. That was easy. Gaining weight is not trying to gain weight. When you are forced to train 2 times a day, you're just naturally burning all these calories. Not to mention you've got a metabolic rate. You've got to eat a surplus of calories on top of all that. It's a very difficult thing to do. And Islam was so big for 155, I did not know that he was going to have to try to gain weight. I thought he was going to weigh what he had been weighing and just have to lose a little bit less weight, but he revealed to us that no, he's actually trying to put size on. And it was interesting when he said practices are harder because I'm going with bigger guys. That was interesting to me. I'd be curious if he could be more specific. I would love to see the guys that he's working out with. And I know that team pretty well, but it would seem as though Islam would keep working out with the same guys. We're only talking about 155 to 170. It sounds like he's doing a lot of things different. That is compelling to me. In the same interview, Islam brought up Paddy the Baddy. Now, here's where things, for me as a viewer, took a turn. He brought up Paddy the Baddy. He said nobody's checked Paddy the Baddy. He was talking about Paddy's schedule. He said Paddy's schedule hasn't been all that difficult. There's not really a reason to believe or some crowning moment that Paddy's had. And the more that Islam went in on Paddy, the more it was hard for me to accept these two things, to reconcile the two things. Islam has always had the idea that I'm going to go to 170 and become king, and then I'm going to come back to 155. I'm going to come back and I'm going to fight Ilia Topuria. And I've always argued, hey, Islam, I know that's how you feel right now, but once you test the waters at 170, you'll never want to go back to 155 again. Once you go through a training camp where you actually have the energy to walk in the room and say hi to the guys and you got good spirits, you're leaving training, you're so hungry, but this time you know you can actually go and enjoy a meal. You can reward yourself when you get out to fight week. And you've only got to dehydrate 10 pounds as opposed to 10 kilograms, which is 20 pounds. You're going to see that you don't want to go back to 155, but Islam himself won't stop speaking about 155. Now, I argue for you, even if it's subconscious, the reason that nobody has successfully become champ going up in weight is because they knew they could return. They knew that they could return to their title. I will argue for you that Volkanovski, when he lost to Islam, which, by the way, was a split decision, one judge thought that he won, but Volk knew, when I wake up tomorrow, whether I beat Islam or not, I wake up world champion. Volk knew in his heart, subconsciously, he knew my next fight, regardless of the outcome of this one, is going to be a main event, and it's going to be for a world championship. And it's called burning your boats, and it seems like a very important thing to do. It seems almost a necessary thing to do. I would be curious if Alex Pierre finds himself in this spot and he's going to go after John Jones, if he goes after John Jones while delaying the 205-pound class, or if he drops that belt. If he puts himself in a position where I must win. And Islam gaining size. Islam talking about the enjoyment of life having gained size is everything that I predicted. But what I didn't predict is while gaining that size and enjoying life at 170 pounds, he still got an eye on 155. He still hasn't let go of that class. There's no other reason that Islam would be speaking about Paddy. Islam could simply say, I wish Paddy the best. I used to be in that weight class. I was king of that weight class. He might make it to the top of the hill while I'm gone, and he could just move on. But he doesn't appear to have moved on. And the idea that Islam has, which is I must fight Ilia Topuria. And that's largely because of you guys. You, the audience and crowd, has demanded to see that fight. You could see that fight. It would just be Ilia coming up to 170. It wouldn't be you dancing to Ilia's tune and returning to 155, it would seem to me. So I got a little bit lost in this. I got a little confused when he said that he was working out with bigger partners and that was harder. It generally isn't that way. I'll tell you what, from my wrestling background, MMA background, or jiu-jitsu background, the bigger the guy you go with, the easier the workout. He's just a little bit slower. It's as simple as that. He's trying to catch up with you. Size is not an advantage, even though we tell people it is. It's a size disadvantage. You would love to know who weighs more, and if that's the only information you have, bet against the guy that's smaller. Bet against the guy that's lighter. So I really appreciated this interview with Islam. I'm going to be sitting down with Islam soon and doing an interview. And there's a number of things that I do want to ask him, but I would like to narrow him down real stern. If it doesn't go your way with Jack, do you stay at 170? Do you get matched up with the Colby Covingtons, with the Kamaru Usmans, with the Ian Garys, with the Belal Muhammads? Or do you drop back down to 55 and try to cut the line there? Let's say Ilia's available and he and Patty hadn't fought yet. Let's say Ilia's available and Ilia and Sarukian haven't fought yet. Let's say we establish a number one contender in the Hooker-Sarukian match, but we have not paid that off to the audience yet. That match hasn't happened. Islam drops down. He cuts the line in front of them. Maybe. Be hard to argue against. But the mega fight of Islam versus Ilia isn't quite a mega fight if Islam loses to Jack. Right? If Islam gets beat at 170 and then we bring him home to 155, it's still a good match, but it's not the same match. And I'm not convinced where Islam's head is. I'm just not convinced. I'm not convinced that he is convinced. Like a lot of guys, they get used to something. It's kind of like when a guy leaves high school, but he still loves the high school. He'll even put the Letterman's jacket on sometimes. He'll even return to a football game and cheer for them. Sometimes it's hard to turn the page. Sometimes it's hard to move on. But when Islam was talking about his weight, not talking about Jack, not talking about Kamaru, not talking about Colby, he was talking about his weight, and then he was talking about Ilia. He was talking about his weight, and then he was saying that he thinks Paddy the Baddy is untested. I, the viewer, got confused. I, the viewer, am still confused. I will maintain that by the time this fight goes off, by the time fight week comes off, and Islam gets to experience how nice and pleasant the sport can be when you have a few extra pounds, when you have a few extra meals, when you have a little bit more water. I don't believe that he's going to want to return to 155 pounds. I can just share for you, if he can come to that revelation prior to fight night with Jack, it will put himself in the proverbial corner. It will make him win. If I want to be champion, here is my opportunity. Here is my only opportunity. That's subconscious. But you need that cautiously for the times when you got to dig deep. And I think that Islam is in a little bit harder fight than he's aware with Jack Del Maddalena.